Welcome everybody to Agent Matters. Today we thought we would check back in with some of our previous panelists. So we have Gemma Antrobus here, who's Managing Director of Haslemere Travel. We have Sandra Corkin, Managing Director of Oasis Travel, and Tony Mann, Director of Idle Travel. And you may have seen all of these guys before when they joined Pippa 6 weeks ago. And obviously 6 weeks these days is an absolute lifetime. So we thought it would be a good opportunity to kind of catch up with these guys and find out how everything's been going for them. And I'm Jennifer Morris, I'm the news editor at TTT, if you don't know. So I don't know if you'd mind maybe Gemma kicking off with just telling me a little bit, for anyone who doesn't know, a little bit about your business and kind of your general sentiment, how you're feeling at the moment with everything.
Yeah, so I'm Gemma Antrobus, Haslemere Travel. We're a 35-year-old luxury travel agency based in Surrey. We have a physical presence. We also have a home working division as well. Lots happened in 6 weeks. Some days I feel like I'm absolutely treading water, and other days I feel like I've made real progress. And I think that's speaking to other agents, like anybody out there that you might speak to on a daily basis. Everyone is feeling the same thing. It definitely has its peaks and its troughs. You have some really flat weeks, some maybe not high weeks, but high days where you think, yes, I'm really conquering this and I'm getting on top of it. And then other times where you're just like, I feel like I'm at the beginning again. I'm having the same conversations with people. Either your suppliers aren't able to give you what you need to keep your clients happy, or your clients are just not listening to what the situation is. I think that the continual stream of information, whether it's factually correct or not, that comes out of social media, out of the news, out of these pundits that think they know everything, is really unhelpful, especially when you're trying to talk to clients about what is factually correct with their booking, and they obviously think that they know better. So yeah, a really mixed bag. I'm still very optimistic about the future. It's just obviously dealing with the now that we're all going through, and I don't think any one of us is in any different position.
Mm-hmm. Okay, how about you, Sandra?
Yeah, well, very much similar business, I think, to Gemma. We are celebrating 36 years in business this year, and it's just juggling, looking after the finances of the business, managing the cash flow, which has never before been a problem at this time of the year, trying to keep in touch with the staff, trying to keep people motivated, trying to deal with customers, some of whom are very understanding, and some, because of exactly what Gemma said, because of a lot of the consumers programs still saying, you need your money back, you get it back within 14 days. And I suppose dealing with the lack of consumer confidence in the industry, the scaremongering that there's going to be very few airlines, that, a lot of the travel agents and package travel operators are going to go bust, so there's going to be no operators next year. Dealing with all the nonsense in the business too, and trying to reassure customers that their money is safe, and trying to keep in touch with them, and of course trying to do that with limited staff, because we have taken advantage of the furlough scheme because we have to.
Yeah, absolutely. We will come on in a moment actually to some specific questions around the furlough scheme. But very quickly, Tony, if you could just fill everybody in on your business and where you're up to with things.
Sure. So I'm Tony from Idle Travel. So we're based in a village called Idle. There is an actual place called Idle, believe it or not. And it's idle at the moment, to say the least. But yeah, so we're based in an actual shopping centre. Morrison Supermarket's got their head office. We're in Bradford, and we're in a shopping mall there. So we run an agency in the high street. And what Gemma and Sandra said, similar. It's been, I mentioned 6 weeks. Can't believe it's 6 weeks ago that we spoke, and you go through different emotions. The emotions is from being down, up, angry. I'm getting better now because I'm getting angry. So my patience is wearing thin with certain things. But I do a fortnightly radio show at the moment for an hour. We do a phone in on the BBC Radio Leeds, and actually the tone, I did it on Monday, the tone has changed a little bit, but so things are changing, but every day is different. I deal, I suppose, with the press and media quite a lot, and yeah, we've got a lot to cope with and comprehend and try and get our heads round. So yeah, it's absolutely been difficult. But yeah, got to take some eyes from it, I suppose, the little ones that there are.
Yeah, absolutely. And also do feel free, anybody watching on Facebook, to leave your questions for the panel on there, and I will try and put them to them. Keep it clean, please. So on to furlough, which is obviously a huge issue that was spoken about a lot in your first appearance, guys. I was just wondering, I've heard of some agencies who have started to bring some staff out of furlough to manage bookings. Is that something that any of you have actually started to do or you're planning to do in the near future? Sandra?
Yes, we didn't furlough all of the staff, and we have kept some staff still working. So some staff to be able to deal with new inquiries that are coming through our website, albeit they're few and far between. We're still continuing to send out e-blasts, and we're getting a bit of a response from those. And of course, then we have our cruise Facebook page and our travel Facebook page, and we have 3 people dealing with that. And, you know, we have noticed, you know, over the past couple of weeks that we are getting a bit of an increase on the business, but just to be absolutely honest, we had to keep people non-furloughed to be able to deal with that. And of course then some people that are still dealing with client problems.
Mm-hmm.
But the majority of our staff are furloughed.
Right, okay. And do you have any sort of immediate plans to look at that, or is it still a bit too far in the future?
Yeah, I think that the next change for us will probably be whenever we're able to open shops. So in Northern Ireland, that looks as if it could possibly be the 1st of July. So we're going to be planning that from next week, whether it's sort of shortened hours, but I think it'll be a phased return to work. And we are quite glad that the furlough scheme has been extended, because although we might be open, it's really difficult to be able to confidently sell something. It's maybe okay for next year, but we don't know what's opening up and when it's opening up. So it's just a wee bit of the unknown yet.
Yeah, absolutely. How about you, Tony and Gemma? Have you got any ideas about when you might be reopening and whether you might start needing to bring some staff back in?
Yeah, so we're planning it looks like we may be able to reopen at the beginning of June. So that's what we're going to do. So we've got, you know, we've already ordered things for the shop, etc. And so, but it depends on when we can open and decide who we're going to not furlough or whether to go the part-time furlough. Fair play to the furlough scheme in the speed of being paid out was good. Not necessarily completely what travel needed, but actually that said, you know, credit to you know, the Chancellor there. I thought it was good. It was quick. It was fairly easy to do. So we're planning more for June if we get to reopen in a phased return. And as I said, there's the part-time thing that we might consider, and maybe do 3 week on, 3 week off. So depending on what happens when we know for sure, it'll be hopefully June to look at.
So did you think that the recent announcement about the kind of adjustments to the furlough scheme, was that helpful? Obviously the extension was helpful, but do you think perhaps they could have gone further in the kind of flexibility in the meantime? Because I think we can go part-time from September, but that's still a way off, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I suppose, look, you know, we look at it from travel, and as I said, we have a different angle because, you know, we can be busy, as Sandra said, like on refunds and things like that. You know, it's, you know, my daughter's dealing with all that, and it's really, she's busy and it's difficult. So, you know, we still could do with the workforce to just implement all the admin and administration side. But that said, you know, I'll give credit to the furlough scheme. It's good. It could be a little bit more flexible, but they look at it as a whole. So, no, I'll say hats off to them. You know, and they've looked and they've tried to tweak it. And let's see how it goes. But yeah, the extension is good. You know, anything that we can keep us costs down, because we're going to have to need that for months and months on end before, you know, we start to recover and make any money, I suppose.
Yeah. How about you, Gemma? Are you looking at reopening as well around the beginning of June?
Well, so in the last 6 weeks, we've managed to move offices as well as deal with all of this. So
yes, I saw that. So had you already planned to do that?
We've planned for about a year. So the timing is just horrific. We were supposed to move beginning of April, but because we'd only just hit this situation, we managed to push it to the beginning of May, which was great until you factor in moving an office where we've been for 22 years. Even though it's just across the road, my husband and I had to do the whole thing ourselves because of social distancing, and we were still very much in that first phase of lockdown. So yeah, I never want to move a desk or a filing cabinet ever again. We broke us. It took a whole week of full days of us moving stuff. Anyway, So we have a lot to do to get the office straight before we even open. And I think realistically, we're probably talking about, well, we've got to wait a little bit further to hear more from the government, but I think it's probably more in line with what Sandra says of July before we're physically back in the shop. And I think that, you know, the furlough scheme has been amazing, as Tony said, but what we need to do is look at what demand is coming in for new bookings, and that's revenue. Because at the end of the day, what, you know, if you've taken advantage, if you've been able to get, you know, your loans and your grants, that's fantastic. But what, you know, is I suppose is a tricky thing to do is to start using those to pay wages. You know, we need to ensure that we've got revenue coming in to drive our businesses forward, and make sure that we're not, you know, just going to start eating into any monies that we may have had in a large way that could help us through the next few months, in whatever that looks like. And again, it's demand. If the demand's not there in terms of bookings coming in yet, obviously then, and we're still dealing with refunds and that kind of thing, then we'll work as we are. We just have to get that balance right, and there's no way of knowing what that looks like. We could have an announcement from the government and overnight be inundated with inquiries and people paying full balances for travel at the end of the summer, and happy days we can bring back, you know, some of our team. On the flip side, people might not start, you know, looking at holidays till 2021, in which case we're not going to start earning the money till back end of this year. So I think it's a bit more of a watch and wait, probably like Sandra and Tony. We've got contingency plans for everything. You know, what would happen if it came back overnight? What would happen if it doesn't come back for 6 weeks, etc. What we have started to do is look on the health and safety side of how to operate. So we've started our risk assessments. There's great help from the health and safety executive on their website for, you know, if you've never done a risk assessment before, there's, you know, templates for it. There's instructions on what to do. And, you know, whilst it says it should be for a business of over 5 employees, I think it's prudent for all of us, even if there's just 2 or 3 of you in a shop, to go through that process for your own safety. And should your clients ask for it, it's much easier to go, here's the binder, this is everything that we've done, and it makes you look like you know what you're talking about. So you there's that element to cover off formally, and it won't take long, and it, you know, you all know your businesses and your buildings and all that kind of stuff. It's just having that documented, and not sort of taking it for granted that whilst you know what you've done, that everybody else does, including your staff and your clients. But yeah, that's us.
Okay, Tony, I think you mentioned just now some of the things you've actually started looking at ordering for your shop. Are you talking about things like screens, or what other ideas have you had?
Yeah, so the screens are ordered. So in our office we've got 5 desks, so there'll only be 2 desks open at any one time. All signage. I've got floor mats with the social distancing messages on, gloves. I've actually ordered a load of pens with our logo on, because I'm thinking every customer that did come in get to take a pen home. So I've always wanted to get into people's houses, not in a way to rob them, even though I always think, how can I get our name into a home? So I thought, oh, everybody's going to get a pen that way. We don't have to touch that pen anymore. It's the customers, they get to take it home. So
they can clean it themselves.
Absolutely, yeah. My brand wipes that I've got Idle Travel on. But yeah, so it's all, we're ready to go in a way. Or we will be ready to go. So anything we can consider. So we've got hands-free sanitizing units that you put your hand under and you know, that you would get in like hospital type things there. So they're in. We're just having a unit because I'm a bit. It's got to look nice. I'm a bit thingy with me, shocked. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So all types of things like that. It's planned and we'll see. But obviously cut the number of customers down, etc., and things like that. Probably the door may be locked. We'll try to decide whether it's appointment only, but limit the customers in and things like that. So yeah, lots of planning. But I suppose we've got, you know, 24 hours in the day, because you don't sleep much. You wake up 3 in.the.morning thinking of things.
Yeah. Well, actually, just to plug our own event, we've got another event, a panel on Friday in our business support live theme, which is all on this. If anybody wants to tune into that, sort of specifically about getting your agency ready for a return, which should be quite interesting. So just quickly back to furlough. I mean, how are you guys, your teams that are furloughed, presumably you've been keeping in touch with them. How are they finding things? Are you finding that they're starting to get a bit fed up, or you know, are they kind of getting stuck in with training? Just quickly a little bit about what they're up to. Sandra, perhaps you can
Yeah, I think there definitely is the feeling that everybody is getting a little bit fed up, because people want information. They want to know when they're coming back to work, and they want questions answered that we can't really answer at the minute. So it is a matter of keeping everybody motivated. So yes, some of the webinars and some of the training that the operators have that we've had access to has been absolutely fantastic. So they've been taking advantage of that. Then we're doing like a Zoom. One of the guys is doing a cookery class tomorrow. We have a relaxation class on a Thursday, and then we do a whole team check-in on Friday and a business update. So I think it's important that if people are furloughed and they're at home, that you should be keeping in regular contact with them and still, make them feel part of a team, and give them a business update and let them know that there is some light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, totally. A little bit about kind of cash flow, as we've already alluded to. I know in the first panel session that you guys appeared in, there was some difficulties, in actually being able to secure the business interruption loan and grants and things. Can you all give me a little bit of an update on that and how you found that, and whether you've managed to implement that at all? Any plans that you have for that? I think, Tony, you mentioned before the call that you've literally just this morning been given a loan.
Yeah, just as we joined Zoom, I was just reading a text then, and it's just come through. So my bounce back loan has just come through. So it's taken some time, to be honest, but it has come through. So yeah, relation to my bank anyway, not much interaction with them, in the sense that it was starting to irritate me. They kept saying they're looking into it. But anyway, it's come through this morning, so it is there. So that's just that that gives us a little peace of mind. We're okay at the moment for cash flow, where we are fine, but it's there, and it's something for us to have, something for us to plan for really next year. Really, it's more to do with that. It just gives me a bit of a buffer, I suppose, in case I need it. Hopefully I won't, and you can obviously within a year there's nothing to pay on it. So again, it's quite a quick way of getting a loan up for, and if you get it, it's something to give you that buffer, I think.
Yeah. So you think it's quite good advice to perhaps apply for it and then stick it in a bank account. If you don't use it, fair enough, in the first 12 months, but at least it's there.
Yeah, the interest rate is low, and as I said, you don't have to pay for it for a year. So what I'm hoping is that actually, if I don't use it, then in a year or just under, when we're up and running, it can go back. And if I need to use it for something, whether that's marketing or anything like that, it's there as well. So so it was longer than I thought it would be. Because I know other agents have told me they got it quicker, but I just thought it was handy to have.
Yeah. Gemma, I think earlier you called it, what was it? Not rather than a bounce back loan.
Bounce forward loan.
Bounce forward.
So yeah. So just through talking to other sort of entrepreneurs in different industries who've so not travel people at all, who've looked into getting the BBL. Talking about it being a bounce forward loan. So rather than using it for the now, having it for planning for the future, about growing your business, about how you can invest it, not invest it in stocks and shares, so to speak, but invest it in your business, in new ideas, or Tony was talking about different marketing things you might be planning for next year, and looking at it as not for surviving for the now, but for pushing yourself forward for the future. And how, when we do come out of this, which is, we're all living in the today and what we're doing today and maybe tomorrow and next week, but looking at how you can really utilize that, because the first time that any of us have ever been kind of given this amount of money pretty simply, so what can you do with it to make it really useful? And if you get to a point where, like Tony said, you put it in an account and you don't use it, you just give it back to the bank, and you've not really incurred any costs. So I definitely think, whilst we haven't applied for it yet, it's something that we will do, and look at how we can utilize it the most effectively for our business to grow us going forward, and ensuring that our longevity, we've been around for long enough, we're not going anywhere, but how can we really use that rather than just surviving on it, which I think is quite a sensible option, really.
Yeah, especially as all you guys, very strong businesses, it must be quite frustrating to think the idea of taking on a debt is probably quite a little bit daunting. So I suppose if you can compartmentalize that in your own mind and know what your plan is.
Yeah, I think, as I said to you before, I think that's how I'm quite debt averse, and any of these loans, if you don't need them, worried me slightly. And so I think it makes it easier to manage in my head if I know that I'm using it for a purpose, rather than getting myself into debt. not necessarily unnecessarily, but for something that's not helping me to, using money to make money, basically.
Yeah.
Which is, in my head, sits a bit better.
Yeah. And Sandra, is the loan or any grants anything that you've been able to?
Yeah, I feel exactly the way that Gemma does. It's really disappointing that after all these years and building up a strong business, that you have to take out, or you feel that you may need to take out these large loans. So we're doing exactly the same. We our bank has been very proactive, and we're putting our application in later on today, but we've already verbally been promised the money, and it will go into a number 2 account, and we'll draw down on it if we need it. But you know, we've been doing our cash flow projections until the end of the year, which is really difficult to do because you don't really know when you are going to have some proper balances that you can retain the commission on coming into the company. So it is there for the rainy day, because we're afraid of leaving it too late and then passing the deadline. The grants are a bit different in Northern Ireland. We have 6 properties, and I know in the mainland that you can apply for the grants for each property. Here it was per business, so we got a £25,000 grant for the business. Now, I know that some of the businesses in Northern Ireland are fighting that because they're saying, well, why should it be any different? And some of our properties, the rateable value would only enable us to get 10,000, but at the minute it's per business in Northern Ireland and not per property, so that's been a bit disappointing.
Oh yeah, I think Scotland actually had the same difficulty, but I think the SPAA had managed to sort of campaign and managed to get a change to that. So that's frustrating that hasn't been able to happen for you guys. Is that something that you're going to try and lobby on, Sandra? You're probably too busy, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh yes.
Okay, good. Well, let us know how that goes.
Thank you.
Okay, so on to sort of refunds. I suppose it'd be good to just get a bit of a sense from you all as to how customers are now finding things. Again, I think, Tony, originally 6 weeks ago, you'd said, oh, you know, customers are quite understanding, but we're in a completely different landscape now, obviously. And as you guys were all alluding to earlier, there's a lot going on in the media and things like that. Are you finding customers are still being quite sympathetic and understanding, or has there been a bit of a change in tide now that sort of summer balances are starting to become due?
From my point of view, I think that the majority, we've done lots of refunds. So the likes of Jet2 holidays have been good, been quick. You know, they've got a good system in place, and you know, we sell lots of Jet2 holidays, so that's been great. That's kept us. We know the process, so moving forward, as people come into balances, we can deal with that. We tell people well in advance. We've already run people up to October so far, so that's not as bad, because either they're already moved on. You know, our if you like, mantra to them is don't lose your deposit. Whatever you do, if you're not going to pay your balance, then don't lose your deposit. If you're going to pay your balance with somebody like Jet2, there's the refund credit note to consider, and this, you know, we'll explain that to them, and we'll take them how long roughly the refund is going to be. On the side of other companies, that's not been as straightforward, because of course they at the beginning, I think they were citing the APTA rules of being the end of July, and now some are saying they won't even look at them until December, and some are saying March 21, which, to be honest, I don't agree with. You know, I think that in the end, these companies could have the money back. You know, you look at British Airways, I reckon they've refunded 900,000 flights. We're coming to a point where some of these operators paying balances to the hotels, the rooms. If they've got that money back, why would they not refund it to us as agents? If we get a refund back, as we get refunds for our customers, we refund it to our customer because it's theirs. So my irritation is, I understand that at the beginning it was difficult. Nobody knew what was going on. You know, it was hard to fathom in your business. You know, 14 days obviously was not going to happen. But actually, have these companies had refunds on certain holidays? And if they have, why are they not paying them back? You know, if I held money back from a tour operator that a customer had paid, then I'm breaking APTA guidelines. They could have refunds back in their bank that is actually the customer's money. So yeah, I'm starting to get irritated. Some of them, you know, they never mention the refund. They just never mention it. It's always refund voucher. Okay, the customers are getting irritated. They need the money. And obviously we're talking thousands of pounds, and we're 8 weeks on or whatever it is. So people should have a plan. But to actually say, don't come to us for the refund until December, well, hold on, we might be in a different place in December. or don't come until March 21 or whatever that is the part that irritates. Because all it does is puts us in dispute with us customers, and we've lost that customer. And then again, if chargebacks start coming my way, and you know, I'm having to pay for it, why should I give credit to some tour operators? Some are great, you know, some have dealt with it now. We look at Gold Medal, they changed a couple of weeks ago and said they're starting the refunds. Fair play to them. They've got themselves, if you like, they know what's kind of going on, and they've got themselves, and I get that. It's taken weeks and weeks to understand what's going on. So there's all types of things. Customers in the main are not too bad where we know what's going on, but when we tell them, they might not get a refund until whenever. I mean, some coach companies, as for instance, they're not even mentioning refunds. So some people are not happy with the situation. Even when I do my radio thing, which I do every 2 weeks, and it's live, so I get all types of calls, the refund is the number one thing. And it's hurt us as an industry. It's hurt our reputation. You know, we've become, I suppose, years ago, they used to, you know, I've got estate agents or whatever. We used to sell dreams, really. And at times we've been dealing with nightmares because obviously, you know, if it's not coronavirus, it's holidays in the news and not refunding, and it's difficult for us to take, really, with decisions that are not ours. So yes, that's my angry part of it going out. Refunds is not a nice topic. But in general, as I said, this week actually the tone of the calls, this coming in this week to the radio was a little bit a better tone, and things had changed slightly. But there's lots of still unhappy people out there who haven't had a refund, or don't know when they're going to get it, or we have to apply in 6 months or whatever that might be. So that, to me, we need to deal with that. It's not acceptable. I don't know if they've had a refund, these tour operators. So yeah, that part is irritating.
Do you feel, I know that a few weeks ago people were sort of describing travel as the Wild West because of all these kind of like, you know, mixed messages from suppliers and things. Do you feel like there's been any kind of move towards suppliers starting to think a bit more from the same hymn sheet, or is it still kind of all over the place and they've all got completely different policies?
They've all got completely different policies, and in a certain sense that's understandable because they're all different businesses. And for us in the main, we work with small independent tour operators. We don't do much with any large businesses. That's just our business model and how we work. So from that respect, it's been easier because you can have real conversations with business owners, because where they furloughed, like us, most of their staff, you've got the owner of the travel agency talking to the owner of the tour operator, and they're the two people that can make the decisions. And, you know, when you understand where someone's coming from, when you're the owner of a business yourself, you kind of negotiate on things and you go, okay, right, well, we can't do this, but what can we do? It's so much harder when you're dealing with a large company who have, you know, the stresses and strains on the staff that haven't been furloughed are massive, because you've got, you know, all of this responsibility of, you know, direct clients or agents calling who are angry, upset, whatever that might be, on someone who's, you know, a member of reservation staff, for example, and they're having to take the brunt of that. They're not the decision maker. They've only been given the parameters in which they can work with, and they can't change that. And it's really frustrating when you feel awful because you're putting them under pressure that they can't deliver on. And that's the difference. I mean, smaller companies can often make those decisions and they can flex things for you, and they can tell you, yeah, well, look, we expect to get it back on our BA run this week. If it's not, I'll call you, and as soon as it's come in, I can refund you for your client. And you're able to then, you know,
manage the clients.
Yeah. That's expectations, and say, okay, we might not get it till Friday. I can then turn that around and get it to you by Wednesday next week. Once you deliver that kind of information to a client, they're absolutely fine. You know, they're understanding that there's a process and it has to go through the process. What is just the harder situation is where you've got blanket information coming from larger companies, whether that's tour operators or cruise lines. And, you know, for one, I had 2 85-year-old ladies going on a particular cruise in June, and they were told they had to wait for 24 months for their credit refund note to run out before they could get a refund. And they quite rightly said, we might not be alive.
Gosh, yeah.
So, and I've managed to negotiate that down, and they will get a refund quicker than that. But then that's time taken out of my day to find the right person to talk to, who's got the influence, who can make that happen. And we shouldn't have to do that. But likewise, I understand the bigger picture of larger companies having to have a set plan because they've got so many more people to deal with. So I get it, but it's just frustrating when you're on the receiving end of the consumer giving you, their wrath for the day because they're frustrated at being home, and the person they're going to shout at about it is their travel agent because they can't have that nice holiday to escape, everything else that goes on in their day-to-day life.
Yeah, I think in a recent panel, ABTA's lawyer Simon Bunt said that that ABTA would start looking at kind of taking action against operators and suppliers that were giving kind of unacceptable refund time frames. I mean, are you hopeful that that's something that's going to happen? I mean, what do you think can happen, to actually start making these refunds come through a bit sooner?
Surely isn't ABTA's time spent better doing other things than, coming down on the tour operators? I mean, by the time that comes into force, we'll probably be through all of this and there may be a clearer picture. I don't know.
I did contact them a couple of weeks ago whenever I heard that about an operator that wasn't even producing the credit vouchers and had no timeline for their refunds, but I haven't had any acknowledgement of that because they did say to report somebody, so I tried doing that. But I just agree with everything Tony and Gemma says. I think the consumer programs haven't done the travel industry any favours, and all we want the tour operators to do is be reasonable with us. Most of them have, but to say to people that their refund is a year plus away is unacceptable, and expect us to have to deal with those customers. It's no good.
Mm-hmm. And I think you guys would probably echo the sentiments of other agents that, you've kind of maybe got a bit of a mental list now of operators and other suppliers that you will be working with going forwards, and some that you
without a doubt.
And I think we've got justifiable reason to talk to our clients about it beforehand. If you didn't particularly like how an operator treated you personally or how quickly they delivered paperwork, it wasn't really something you could communicate to your client because you felt like, well, kind of that's my issue to deal with. But now I will have no, qualms in holding back from telling a client exactly why we won't work with certain operators and use this situation as the example, because the value of your partners is only when, things go wrong, really, because there's lots of people that can sell the same types of holidays. The value of your partnership is how they recover when things go wrong, or how you work on it together. Let's put it that way. Share some of the responsibility, how you work on it together. And if you can't do that, then, there are plenty of other people out there that you can do it with.
And
they're following ABTA guidelines. When you're arguing with them, well, we're following ABTA guidelines. Well, are you really? In the end, as I said, if you've got that money back, pay it back to me, I'll pay it back to my customer. I don't know whether you've had that money back. And, it works both ways, really. And to just blatantly say we're not going to look at it even until the end of the year, but how do you know? It's just not right. And certainly to wait for a year, 24 months or whatever, that is just ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that, and yet they are big companies. I don't feel sorry for you for your big company. We've all got us problems. You need to deal with it. We've had 6-8 weeks of this, so you need to have put a plan in place that some have started to do. And I get at the beginning it was difficult, and you've had to furlough staff, but it's customers' money, and people. I've seen on TV, radio, on social media, some of the things that have been said, and it's just upsetting that we build our businesses over the years on service. That's what it's all about, and and we want to be able to continue giving that service.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the government's not listened, has it really? The refund credit notes, they've just, I don't know, they've ignored it. They've just not listened. I said yesterday at TTG, we've got no friends in government.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be like, I don't think we have. They're not listening. And actually, what we haven't got, they don't know what the difference between a travel agent and a tour operator. They'll think me being on an high street, his retail is on an high street, must be that, everything's dying. Well, actually, we've been doing quite well, thank you. They just don't understand, I believe, as a travel agent, our voice is not heard. And I've believed that for a long time. And actually, it just proves the point that we're not heard, really, I'm on about government and what actually we can bring either to an area, for, with staff, etc. And, so we've not been listened to. The refund credit note is still not sorted out. It's embarrassing. Still not sorted out.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's been a nightmare. really. And I get on up to side, it's been difficult for them. It's really difficult for them, bless you. So yeah, it's still the number one topic that is frustrating.
It is.
And hurts our businesses. That's the thing. They're hurting my business. And I'll be honest, that's not acceptable. And going forward, when all this is over, you know, we'll change, we'll decide who we're going to work with differently. You know, those who come out, who've dealt with it better will be the ones we'll want to give the business to.
Yeah, and I suppose to your point, Gemma, it's this idea of you need to show integrity to your client, and they need to trust your opinion. And if you're, when you know, on the way up, if you're building up certain suppliers and recommending them because you think they offer a good product and things, I suppose, you know, you're totally within your right to then, if you don't think that, you know, if you don't agree with their ethos, to then, you know, not recommend them going forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So very quickly, we've already been talking for 36 minutes. Oh my goodness. But very quickly, I just wanted to ask you guys a little bit, maybe slightly more positive line of questioning about bookings. Well, depending on whether they're going well or not, really. But I suppose it'd just be good to give people watching a bit of a flavour for how you're finding that, whether you're seeing a kind of gradual week-on-week increase in bookings, and whether, you know, they tend to be for any time later this year, or has that kind of gone out the window? Are you looking mostly at next year now? You know, are you seeing a growth in kind of domestic inquiries? But is that something that you even want to sell? It'd be good to just get an idea about that, really. Who wants to kick off?
We've got a handful of the royal we, me. I have a handful of, and I mean a very small handful of inquiries on the go. The closest to travel for new business is November. That's long haul. I've had a couple of inquiries for the summer holiday period for closer to home. Slightly frustrating is that the suppliers that we use for closer to home, and again, I'm very particular about who we use, are not taking new bookings till the beginning of September. So again, I think that may change in the coming weeks, but certainly when I was looking at this last week, while we're still waiting for more information from the government about moving around in our own country, it was definitely a case of, whoa, hang on a minute, we're not going to take anything new till September. So where we've had clients that might have said, oh, well, we could go to the Scilly Isles or the Channel Islands or something like that, which normally would be no problem, at least 2 suppliers we work with have said, not right now, we're just not taking those bookings. And fair enough, I get it. So, you know, whether there is any, I suppose, business to be made through a travel agent for this summer period for closer to home stuff, I'm not sure how that's going to be possible unless you're booking things directly yourself if you want to or are able. But yeah, certainly looking, we send out a weekly email to our clients, not with sales offers, just, you know, armchair traveling, and we always get a response. At least, you know, people say, oh, that would be lovely, let's talk to you when we're through this. We get a lot of that. Let's pick this up when we're through this. But we've had, you know, a couple of people say, oh, could we look at an inquiry for X or, you know, Y, and people do want to start traveling. They're just, the first thing they say is, can we book it now? And you know, I always say to them, well, there's no harm in looking at what that holiday looks like. Let's look at what the cost is, let's look at the availability, and you need to be happy with it. We need to ensure that you can get insurance before we push any buttons. But I do think it's helping the consumer to start, you know, dreaming again or planning their diaries. And, you know, there will be clients that are more hardy than others. You know, by no means are all of our clients, you know, gung-ho about traveling, you know, September onwards. But, you know, there are still those that say, oh no, couldn't possibly go away till this time next year. And that's fair enough. So yeah, it's just individual, but the kind of the slow drip is positive. And you just hope that as the weeks go on, as we all get a little bit more, you know, tired of being in lockdown, as other countries start to come out of lockdown and show that they're open for business and what their measures they're putting in place are, I think it will give the UK consumer more confidence to travel overseas again. And you know, obviously we've got this 14-day quarantine period for the next month. Well, we're not going anywhere for the next month anyway, so, you know, no one's coming back in. It's just obviously for new people into the country. But, you know, maybe by the summer holiday period, latter end, that won't be in place. Some of the holidays that we have planned for the summer will still be able to go ahead, and there'll be maybe a little bit of last minute business.
We've actually got a whole seminar on this Thursday on domestic tourism, so it'd be quite interesting to sort of see what comes out of that and how domestic operators or providers are kind of looking to perhaps work more with agents and things. So that could be quite interesting to see whether there's a bit of a shift towards taking bookings sooner and things like that. And how about you, Sandra and Tony? Are you sort of seeing any kind of uptick in bookings at all?
We definitely have seen a little bit of an upturn in new bookings over the past couple of weeks. Now, the earliest that we're really getting business in is sort of Christmas, New Year, and there's some excellent deals on Caribbean cruises and then over that period and for next summer. But a lot of inquiries for long haul. We had tried to sort of have a look at hotels and stuff closer to home for that we know that are opening at the end of July, but no take up on that whatsoever. So we're not having any luck with local business, but for Christmas and for next summer, there definitely is more business coming through, a little bit more.
Okay.
At least it's a good sign.
Yes. And same for you, Tony.
Yeah, we started actually putting offers and actual holidays about 3 weeks ago now on social media, and actually it started to pay off. Last week we had, I mean, not what we should have had a far better week, but we had a really good week, and I was quite shocked when I looked at the figures. And you know, it was dripping through before that. It started to pick up, but we had some Florida. We put some Florida things on social media. We had quite a bit of interest in that. We put Iceland on. We did some bookings from that. So actually, it wasn't too bad last week. I was quite shocked how much we got in. I mean, I'm not to the level it should be, obviously. But yeah, I mean, we probably did in a week what we did the whole of April, and we've done a few in April. So I was quite pleased, and I wasn't sure whether to start putting offers on. I'll be honest. I said, let's just give it a go, maybe, you know. And actually, it's been fine. So it's definitely there if you choose the right ones, I suppose. And that's actually given me, you know, a bit of hope this week. You know, I looked yesterday and looked at the figures and thought, wow, that's better. Far better than I thought it was going to be. So, you know, that's good. On the UK side, we do, for ourselves, we do a lot of UK coach, actually. We've got, but yeah, nothing is coming in there. And also not too much horse seasons, as for instance, that you would do lodges and things, stop booking through agents. And so, you know, the rest it's quite minimal. Haven and Butlins, we do a small amount with. Haven changed, they're doing a no frills thing, so at least they're trying to change and adapt, which is quite good. But we've had nothing too much for the UK, and we do Channel Islands as well, but again, that's not taken off. But yeah, so actually the social media side did, you know, our bookings have started to come in, new bookings, so that's brilliant, you know. But it should.
Yeah.
All next year.
I suppose one last question to ask you guys about is pricing. Are you sort of encouraging clients that now is a good time to book in terms of pricing? Are you expecting a huge increase in the short to long term?
It's certainly part of the conversation that we're having when we're talking to clients about moving holidays to next year, particularly because I think we'd all be pretty naive to think that prices will stay very similar for 2021 once we're through all of this. So we're, you know, part of the whole, you know, don't take a credit note. If you want to still take this holiday and you have dates in mind, let's get that sorted now, because there is no doubt that holidays and availability for 2021 will just be completely different. In the main, because we've moved everything, well, just let's say 65% of our businesses moved to 2021, and it's probably reflected with most travel businesses. Therefore, availability for anyone in early 21 trying to book a holiday for next year, the availability is going to be so much less because of everyone that moved. So we're sort of saying to clients, we're using that as a, look, if you can get a 2021 holiday for the same price as a 2020 holiday, you know, in the grand scheme of things, you're winning out of all of this because you've got something to look forward to. You've got the same holiday that you wanted to go on and at the same price as you would have had this year. You know, so definitely it's something we are saying just in the conversations is that, you know, travel will become more expensive. What that looks like, I mean, it would have become more expensive anyway, but, you know, it will be more expensive. Lack of air seats, if you've got airlines going under, we don't know which hotels are going to be opening up. You don't know which hotels and airlines and tour companies are going to put supplements on because of all the money they lost in 2020. So yeah, if you can get in now, while people have got rates released that look, you know, pretty favourable, then don't be waiting for some kind of last minute deal, because well, particularly for 2021, because it's they're not going to be there. The availability is not going to be there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, thank you so much, guys. We normally try and keep these things to half an hour, but you guys have got so much good stuff to say. It's 45 minutes, which is absolutely fine. Unless there was anything else that any of you guys particularly wanted to talk about, or a message for your peers. But I think you've kind of, really helpful and insightful stuff. So that's been great. And maybe we'll catch up again in another 6 weeks, and hopefully it will be a completely different game. All of you for joining us.
Okay, thank you.
And everyone's in.
Thank you. Okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye.